thank you all for your continued support. With that said, I want to bring to the stage this morning our co-moderator, Dr. Mary Painter, our academic director and Baird Chair Professor of Real Estate, who's going to help me with the questioning. And also I want to bring to the stage our two panelists. First of all, she is a worldwide solutions leader for Amazon Web Services and a member of the Cincy AI Catalyst, Alicia Herman. And I also want to bring to the stage Managing Director with Cushman & Wakefield here in Cincinnati and founder of Needle AI, Stash Gelinzinski. How did I do?
You did great.
Good, thank you. Welcome into the stage, everyone.
Oh, that's right. Alicia is going to actually prime the pump a little bit for us today. She's going to give a little overview for everyone, and then Gary and I will get into some questions.
I like to stand, so hopefully that's okay. Okay, so a little bit of intro. Thank you very much, Carl. I am part of the Cincy AI Catalyst, and why do you care about that, right? We're all here for real estate. The Cincy AI Catalyst is set on helping with various pillars on keeping economic development in Cincinnati. And as we are all in real estate, we need people in Cincinnati to continue our jobs. So this would be academically, high school and universities. This would be in the healthcare system. This would be with our governments. We want our neighborhoods safe. We want them secure. We want infrastructure for all. And then we also want to ensure that our talent pool is growing to attract different companies, corporations, startups, small business owners to the region. So Cincy AI Catalyst was founded with all of those pillars, run by, it's a not-for-profit, run by all volunteers, to work across all of those different pillars to ensure that our region is growing and is still a desirable place to live in 10 years based on the rate of acceleration with AI, specifically AI. Did everybody drive here? Probably. Anybody Uber? Any ride share is all based on AI. Any of the GPS that got you here, that's all based on AI. So you are all very familiar AI users without knowing that. But if you would have said to Henry Ford when he was making the car that those things would be possible, that you didn't need 4 horses instead of 2 to get you somewhere faster, no one would have believed you. And what really has happened, if you think about moving from horse and buggy to car, no one had gas stations, no one had mechanics, no one had auto body shops to begin with. So when we think about sign of a parallel with AI, you now have these other things that will be necessary to deal with the world in AI, just like we had to build up the infrastructure to work with cars. So it's a complete mind shift, and I want you to keep that in mind as we talk through the art of possible with AI in real estate today. So who am I? I work with Cincy AI Catalyst. I'm also the vice president of the board of the foreign trade zones. Again, focused on economic development, mostly with warehousing and inventory movement and tariff engineering in this region. I also have a day job that is solution leader, so I work with tech all day and build technology solutions for companies. All right, so a little bit of a warm-up that I skipped over a bit, but we talked a little bit just before about what AI solutions that we have used. And if you see here, we're using them all the time. We have smart thermometers that are cooling and heating our houses when we're not there. It feels the temperature. We have, anybody own Airbnbs? Anybody have a sensor for noise? That's AI. Does anybody do talk to text? That's all AI. That's voice recognition and turning it into text so that you can send information to other people. So most of us in this room are using it already. We just haven't labeled it as that. And as the acceleration is coming, it's been in our face quite a bit, the whole Gen AI revolution. Probably can't see this, but here are some use cases that we're currently using. So I mentioned rideshare and smart thermostat, but we can do targeted ads. Anybody talk, and then all of a sudden you get a Facebook ad for something that you were just talking about. That's using all kinds of AI algorithms. And I just really wanted to show you that AI is very simple, right? You have data that might come through a sensor, that might come through your thermometer or some other type of sensor, plus the data. It goes through an algorithm, just like most code, most applications that you're using, even like Salesforce, something like that. And then it spits out an output, right? You're like, okay, that's great. That seems very simple. The challenge is that we don't always get it right. That's not great. We all know that. We have different facial recognition systems. This is a famous case by Amazon that didn't recognize people of different color. That's very biased, right? So AI can do many things, but we're not always getting the outcome, and it's a bit dangerous. And so the last thing that I'll just leave us with is, why now? Why are we hearing about AI all of a sudden? Does everybody have a phone? This little thing has more data on you in it than anything else, right? We have access to hundreds of thousands of pieces of data about each one of us, and it's sold at very cheap prices right now. So we now have very cheap data that we can use for AI and all of these algorithms simply by not opting out of ads, simply by using LinkedIn, all things that we're already doing. And that data can be sold to other companies who are now using it. And just the price has gotten really cheap. And our sophistication has gotten a lot better. So the rate of acceleration for AI is a lot higher. So I'll just leave you with some of that to kind of come. AI is simple. The outcomes are a little bit hard because we don't get the algorithm outputs there. That's it, and hope you enjoy the rest of the questions.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I wonder if I could turn to staff. Sure. What Alicia did, which was really helpful, is just to show how AI is affecting all kinds of business, daily life, and so forth. Obviously, this is an AI and real estate session, so maybe staff, you can take the first step and kind of talk to us a little bit about first your work, introduce yourself, and then tell us about what are those kinds of use cases that are emerging in commercial real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Stash Gillisinski. My day job is with Cushman & Wakefield. I sell apartment buildings and development sites for apartment buildings. And one of my other jobs is that I am a founder and a partner in a company called Needle. And the hypothesis behind the firm is, what if you could use data and analytics to predict real estate transactions? And it really came out of a need of my own, or a want, really. As a broker, I see a number of brokers in here, and our job is to go out and make connections and call people, but what I found is that if I call a given owner and I say, hey Jim, you've got 20 properties, do you want to sell any of them? It's an immediate no. But what I found is that if you're able to go to them and say, hey, I want to talk about timber trays. Oh, that's interesting. We were just looking at that. So your success rate is significantly higher if you can pinpoint which deal they might be thinking about at any given time. And there's numbers of ways that we can do it manually. You can look at, okay, how long have they held this? Do they have a loan maturing right now in the interest rate environment? Is it floating rate debt? Things like that. So I was looking at, literally when I started, I just had the auditors. I had to build my database from Hamilton County Auditor. So I got very familiar with the data. And then I saw it start to improve with different resources available. I had a partner come to me who happens to be in charge of data and analytics at a firm here in town. And I said, hey, what about this? What if you could use data and analytics to predict real estate transactions? So we slowly started iterating on it. And we fed the models 10 years worth of data, looking at things like rental rates, loan maturities, changes in rental rates, changes in occupancies, how the subject of the property is doing versus its competitors. Ownership behavior patterns, for instance. Hills, they never sell anything. But there's other groups that will regularly transact every, say, 3 to 5 years. And so if you can pick up on those things, and you can take all of these, we look at a couple hundred different, I think 300 different data points that we're plugging in. And we're constantly trying to get new and better data in there just to make it more accurate. And what we found is that, and we're currently just looking at multifamily specifically, 50 units, not throughout the whole United States. But depending on which market we're anywhere from 20 to 40% accurate in identifying transactions before they happen. And those deals will happen within the next 7 months. And so I've seen competitors with listings that we have flagged as hot. I've closed deals that have been flagged as hot in the system, and I've gotten listings from it. That's the practical application of everything that she's talking about. And then we take it a step further, and we say, okay, not only are we trying to name the sellers of the deal, but what if we can figure out who the buyer might be? And so we have a buyer matching algorithm that says, okay, if you own in Columbus, but we have a deal over here in Indianapolis, They're similar sorts of markets, they're parallel. Chances are, if you own something here, you're gonna want to own something here. And so we're looking at similar owners, similar properties, and similar markets to say, okay, here's a hot list of prospective buyers. And we found that we're about 70% accurate in naming the buyers for any given transaction. So that's the practical side of what she just talked about, how we're trying to apply machine learning and analytics to the practice.
Alicia, any follow-up?
Yeah, I would just give some other practical applications. Streamlining anything that has to do with financing. We all know there's still a lot of data points that you have to provide an underwriter. There's cases to streamline that. I know for a transaction that I just had, I had to go inside, take pictures of everything for not only the transaction but for also the insurer, and they were able to come up with a plat map of the entire area to adjust my rate for insurance and ensure that everything was there without missing, right? So that's another type of practical application. So you can look at risk, you can look at financing, you can look at things in different ways that we weren't able to do before because of the data that's available. And I would also say just from, again, understanding your demographics, your target market. This morning, just for fun, I put into Claude, which is like ChatGPT, I just prefer Claude, he's a buddy of mine now. And I just said, out of Hamilton County, of all of the different areas within Hamilton County, can you tell me, pretend you're a real estate investor, so he has a persona for now, pretend you're a real estate investor and give me the last 5 years of data, what is appreciated most per price per square foot, as well as increase in transactions. And it gave me a list and said, based on this and other factors, this is what I would invest in. So there are other types of practical applications that you can do when you're doing your own due diligence or running scenarios.
What kind of challenges and barriers, so to speak, that we in the real estate industry might face in terms of adopting AI as part of your business?
I personally think it's fear and upskilling. So I think it's a lot of education and just understanding exactly what AI is, where can I have access to it, and where will it help me. There are use cases, everything from sitting here and what's being recorded, so you can just take meeting notes about this and get actions and summaries or key takeaways. You can use that for LinkedIn. You can use that to set meetings and email other people to set meetings just by a recording of today's session. But I think it's just understanding where in my life could it apply and how would I want to use it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the more you decide to use it, the more, oh, what if I could do this? I use ChatGPT, that's the first point, but it doesn't really matter, I guess. But I use it all the time. I use it to produce my podcast. I use it when I was like building the sales roadmap for Needle. You have to watch it. You have to, these large language models is what they're called. They sometimes, I think it's called hallucination, and so they'll elaborate more on maybe capability. Like in my meeting notes, I took these questions that we came up with and I plugged it in because I have a whole thread that's based on Needle. And I said, based on everything that you know about Needle, give me specific answers to these questions, and then also elaborate further on the larger commercial real estate market. And it said that we look at millions of data points, and we don't. You have to be careful of those things like that. It still takes the human eye to make sure that it's not overpromising and under-delivering.
One thing I might just note, it could be helpful to have this analogy and just emphasize something you said, Stash. In our business, in our work, and even in my own work, I would have not necessarily called any of my modeling efforts AI 10 years ago. And you had noted, like you had a methodology to identify likely deals. And it was based on a set of factors that previous research had noted, these are the factors that you want to look at to sort things out. And the next kind of iteration is these machine learning models doesn't necessarily require you to know what are those factors anymore. Instead, you're developing a risk list. Like and you use the term hot properties or the hot matches and that sort of thing. Some of you may have seen the brick by brick series that CET is doing, and I'm working on a project to try to identify people who are at high risk of eviction. They wanted to call it AI. I was like, this isn't really AI. I'm just trying to model and identify what is high risk and so forth. But that's, as you were saying, Alicia, it's become an umbrella term. So most of you are doing what we're talking about. What we have now is the opportunity to upskill and imagine different ways to develop kind of a hot list, if you will. And I wondered, maybe you'd respond, I may have just too narrowly characterized this. How would you just add to it so that people can get a handle on, this is what we do in our business day to day. If I was to apply this new set of skills, how would my day to day change?
So if I were using a tool such as Needle or anything else, you could have, I think the next era of this is what we would call agents, right? So you have your own workers for you, meaning it would utilize these models, it would come back and just provide a summary to you. So instead of you going and doing all this research and spending so many days, your agent is working on your behalf, but you are the decider. So if my research this morning in Claude asking which properties, I know there are proposed areas that I would not buy in, right? It's giving me this list with data, but I know personally that I would or would not do that. You can use these tools to provide you the data, and then you would have the ultimate say in what you do. So I would hope that the tools would provide you more time in your day to do things like meeting with your clients, making sure your customer service is better, making sure you are looking at more prospecting and doing other things that are adding value to your day, and taking away some of the tasks that are repetitive in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, again, I think using it as a tool to help accelerate what you're already doing and what you're already good at. For the development community, I've seen there's a solution out there that it'll give you, I think what you do is you put the site size in, and then I believe the demo I saw was for like a shopping center. And you can change the size of the building, and it will change the parking ratio and all that. So it helps developers and architects and site planners be that much more efficient instead of having to, and I don't know how it's done, so I apologize for butchering it, but instead of having to more manually do it, you can just move things around. It's like, well, that's pretty sweet. That helps accelerate that development time, which development deal takes 4 years, start to finish.
Before I move to the next question, I wonder, is there an immediate follow-up? Because you might have something in your mind, a use case in your business. We don't need to like talk and then give you the chance, but all right. So don't be shy. If you have an immediate follow-up after the next one, please do. Carl, you want to ask the next one?
Yeah, from a local perspective, why is the adoption of AI critical to us geographically, to this region? I don't know if I'm asking the question in the right way, but is there a particular element of this that's important for us as a region?
I think it's to attract and retain talent. So a lot of the things that I'm working with the Catalyst, we do things like government workshops. We ensure that local governments of the 19 municipalities around the region are aware of the tools that are there. We have roundtable interactions so they understand what other municipalities are using. And it's really to ensure that we have, if I think about it, the skill set in say just warehouse, a distribution warehouse, something like that. Currently you might win on price because the price per square foot right now is still in this region is less than other regions. But fairly soon there might be tools with smart tools with AI and machine learning that can remove some of the labor force, which is most of the cost of running these, and really remove the price down to what our price is in this region. So you really got to think, how do I remain competitive? How do I still attract talent here? How do I still keep business in this area, especially with all of the commercial real estate we have? We're still within 1 day driving distance of 70% of the distribution belt here. So we can play a vital part in a lot of things within the supply chain. We really got to think about like, how do we ensure that we are upskilled here? How do we start that at the youngest level in grade schools? And how do we bring it to university level? And Josette is not here, but she is with the University of Cincinnati. They just won a huge grant. They have one of the first official AI cross practices against universities, and they're becoming a spokesperson of how you can then implement AI into all of the university curriculum. They have also used a grant to create technologies. You talked about hallucinations, to actually detect hallucinations that are coming out of models. We can have some assurance that what we're using in our AI models is accurate, right? I think it's in healthcare, right? So there's other projects within UC that are utilizing x-rays, and they've already been able to detect that if you have this certain heart condition, that you will have, if you have this certain gene for breast cancer, you will also have a heart condition. So that's going through thousands and thousands of x-rays and models to be able to predict that. So I think as the population develops, they want to be close to these things. And so that's where we as real estate individuals care. Do we have those things to attract the people and stay with us from all of the infrastructure around?
So there's been conversations around ethics in AI. There's of course the Terminator 2 kind of scare of what AI could do and take over, etc. But I do think that this is an important issue because we have, as a group, talked about how sometimes it's hard for a new small real estate development company to get into the business, to break into the business. Do you have any concerns that AI will become a barrier for these small companies vis-a-vis the larger companies to actually do business, or do you think it will help even the playing field a little bit?
I think it'll help even the playing field a little bit more because large organizations, they move at a much slower pace because they have a decision process by committee, where a smaller, more agile development shop can say, all right, here are the things off the shelf that I can maybe tailor a little bit to my needs. Maybe it's not the exact fit, but that's again where the human element comes in, and I can make decisions. I have a client who's doing this with VAs in particular. He started off in, I don't know what he was selling, medical sales or something like that. He has scaled real estate practice using virtual assistants and other software solutions actually. And so he's got a whole offshore team that handles all of his leasing and maintenance and helps manage his inbox. And just did a podcast with him, it's DJ Hume, and he talks about it in that. And it's just fascinating. It's, that is amazing. And so it helps this guy, who's just one guy, really scale up and really start to compete much more efficiently and much more quickly than I think 10 years ago.
I can propose just a juxtaposition. If you're looking at research for targeting eviction, or looking at if we get so good at tailoring these algorithms, we might forget about whole populations within this area, or they could become biased. We have validation bias, all sorts of different bias. So if you're looking at financial models, will you underwrite and lend to these individuals? It might preclude a whole entire segment of population just because that's what happened in the past, not for what's present, right? We do have to be careful about what we're producing and what we're using.
Sure, and that's the problem with the data. The biggest challenge, I think, to effectively using AI to help increase productivity in whatever it is that you're doing is having access to quality, consistent data. We spent a year sewing together and then ironing out all the property records across the country. And it was a big challenge because from state to state and even county to county, they don't all use the same recording metrics, or they might call one thing this and then another state is going to call it that, and it's just a big challenge. Making sure you have clean data.
I like the example you gave though, like concerning, for instance, credit scoring, right? And these tools can actually develop alternative models to credit scoring in terms of the ability to pay, likely to pay, all those kinds of things. But then we have an industry, and perhaps not all the bankers in the room will readily adopt that. Why? Because the regulator might not readily adopt that. And so I wonder if you anticipate, getting back to Carl's question about barriers, do you anticipate there to be barriers simply because we don't collectively believe in what the tool is telling us, or is there some other kind of barriers? If we're forward thinking as a region, in terms of our business, we actually might be quick adopters of these alternative tools.
Yeah, I do think there are some very simply that we haven't mentioned now on policy, just overall regulation and policy. Europe has been fast to develop and put out responsible AI policies and regulations for what data can be used. I think, I'm not sure how many people do international deals, but you can't even use the same data sets for Europe for storing people information that you can in the US. So they've been much quicker to adopt and say, this is the types of things that you can do with AI, and these are the types of things that you can do, cannot do, which has, for better or worse, led a lot of people to the US because it's like a carte blanche free reign to develop any type of product that you want here before the regulators come down, right? McDonald's didn't have caution hot written on their coffee cup until they were sued. So I think until those sorts of especially for any smaller business that wants to work with large enterprise, because they will not adopt an AI product unless it's been proven for so long. You can't even step in the door, that type of thing. So I think there will be a maturity curve there.
Alicia, talk a little bit about maybe the Cincy AI initiative. What it does, are there elements to it that could perhaps help others looking to scale up their AI efforts?
Yeah, so in Newark, we call it Fourth Friday. Every Fourth Friday, the Cincy AI Catalyst puts on an education series, and then it talks about the blueprint of the region and where we stand. So in healthcare, in government, in startups, in education, and just responsible AI. So it shares with what we are doing, what our efforts are, and you can get free training there. And you can also learn about everything else that's happening in the region. So we share, there's a Cincy AI meetup that's every first Tuesday of the month. There's a lot of other resources, but the Catalyst is more like an evangelist of how do we take what we know and ensure the entire region is catalyzed in understanding this. So there are a lot of different methodologies. We're working maybe on a partnership with the Inner Lions to see if some of those high school students might want to go out and teach at like libraries or to senior citizens or whatever to just upskill the entire region.
And just getting back to the next steps that folks in the room might want to do, are there one or two things that should be implemented? Maybe not tomorrow because that's a weekend, but in January 2025, what one or two things should the folks in the room do in their business that they're not doing now related to AI tools?
I'm not going to shoot on any of you, but just ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude all have free versions. Just try it out. Just start asking questions. And it's really flexible. Like so this is how I use it in the podcast. I have a guest coming on, I'll go to their website, I'll go to their LinkedIn profile, I just hit select all, copy, and I dump all this data into the particular thread. You have to use one thread for each subject that you want to use. So that's an important thing. You can't open a new chat, essentially, for each thing. But you put all that in, and then you say, hey, give me the best 5 topics to talk about this person on the podcast. And it'll give you a set of 5 topics, and then you can say, hey, I want to talk actually more about this, and it'll refine it. And so just do things like that. If you have a client, go to their website, go to the person's LinkedIn profile, copy that, paste it, and say, give me some interesting things to talk about this person. And just see what happens. You don't have to use it, but just see what happens. And that would be probably a good first step, is what I would suggest. And it's not scary. It's not scary.
I would also suggest just getting familiar with tools. I do work for Amazon. This is not a shameless plug. I like the product that they have. They have something with everybody shopping for the holidays. This might be something that you do on the weekend. If you go into Amazon, they have something at the bottom right corner. You might have to update your app. It's called Rufus that will actually help you shop. And it's based off of ratings, customer reviews. You can put in there the profile. I want to shop for my niece that's 4 and loves Paw Patrol, whatever. And they'll come back and give you ideas for that. And then you can say, refine it by this, when actually she doesn't like anything that's blue. And then it'll re-suggest things for you. It's a very non-biased type of tool that you can start using. I would also try to do other practical things. Has anybody heard of Otter at all?
Yeah.
Or use Copilot, Microsoft Teams? Any of those things have the ability to take notes during your meetings and then email you actions out of there. They'll give you a summary, they'll give you actions, and just start using those tools to see if they work for you. It might not work, right? My last company, I had an admin, but I never asked her to do my travel because she never knew my kid's soccer schedule or when I wanted to fly or anything like that. So AI is not the end all, it's just a tool if it works for you.
No, and I would piggyback on Otter, and I didn't know Copilot. It's awesome. Basically, it's a note taker. You probably have seen it in some of your meetings. You're like, what is this? And it's so-and-so's note taker. And it will come in, and it literally takes a transcript, and then in the app itself, you can go back and say, what are the takeaways? And so it eliminates the need for you to carry a notebook or even type things out on your phone. And people just, It's a new technology that people have to get comfortable with, but I think it's a great tool because and then you can go back and search. What was it that person said? Oh yeah, okay. And you can search through all of your chats, or you can go to that specific one and pull it up. It'll give you the tasks and takeaways and note summary. It is tremendous.
Let's talk future. Let's talk the next 3 or 5 years. What trends are coming down the pike, and what should the folks in this audience be thinking about in terms of addressing those trends?
I don't know specifically all the trends that are coming. I try and stay in tune and in touch with everything as much as I can, but you're going to see more integrations between software solutions that are going to make tasks easier. In the same way that email and then laptops. We were just talking about it. We had our Christmas party the other day. People used to be at the office till 7 because you had to be there till 7. But now we have laptops and we take the internet home with us, and so you can be from wherever and still respond to emails effectively. I go to meetings, I only have my phone. That's all I need. And so it's things like that that are coming down the pike that are just going to make life easier and more efficient if you adopt it.
Yeah, I would just say in terms of overall AI, I think the agents, so taking an outcome and then doing a step after that. So instead of just getting your meeting notes summary, you can actually have an agent, like virtual assistant, he was describing, do outcome, like do actions for you that you used to have to do yourself. You may not feel comfortable with that right now, but it's also things like if I'm in a warehouse again and I see these things happen, right? I see that there's a product with peanuts that cannot be mixed in with another product, and I have cameras all over observing this. They can take the action to stop the production line, alert somebody to come down and see it. So I think there's a lot of that. One thing, I'll give another fun example. If you're in a grocery store, AI is happening all over, right? It's determining how many people are queuing by the checkout lines. Do they need other people to come up and open check register lanes? They're looking to see if there's any cold product that has been moved and left on the shelf. They're looking to see how many boxes have been removed off the shelves to see what needs to be replenished at night. There's a whole host of things, but each of those AI tools works by itself. So if you have 5 different competing needs, you're looking at individual use case. So a lot of things that may happen next year is to bring all of those together to give an output saying you have 5 additional people, 2 should go here, 1 should give the meat that's left over here, and the other person should go there. So it's more like systematic and process-oriented AI as opposed to individual use cases. And the last thing that I'll say, there will be a lot more discussions on ethical and responsible AI. What exactly does that mean to ensure that we are utilizing our tools the way that we should?
I would just like to add, specifically to commercial real estate, there are applications that can help you manage, the utilities, see if the age-old problem is my toilet has been running for a month and I didn't figure it out until I got the bill. There are applications that can help you manage the utilities, things like that. For asset managers, there's platforms out there. If you have multiple different third-party property managers in various markets that you're using, and they all have different PMS systems, there are solutions that will standardize that data and then bring it into a dashboard so that you can see a standardized set, so you don't have to spend hours or have an analyst spend hours streamlining that data and putting it into reports for you. That will just, through an API feed that will come in, be standardized, and then you have a dashboard, and then you can drill down into each one of your individual properties. So that's how I think specifically will relate to commercial real estate.
That's great. So I do want to now turn it over to you to ask your questions. What is in your, yeah, Sean? And I know we have some mics coming so that everyone can hear you. I know the first time, thank you for your patience as it walks to you right now. And then someone else can raise your hand and we'll get that going to you.
Yeah, just to pick up on this thread of things, what's coming down the pike, can you talk a little bit about these next generation tools, the reasoning-based tools like OpenAI's O1, where you see that kind of picking up where LLMs leave off?
Yeah, I think tools are these are very well-funded corporations that keep getting more money, right? And they have, if you think about the amount of data that they have, individual data points aren't really going to move the needle anymore. So I think what will happen with those types of corporations is that they'll start getting actually to be able to change the outcome of those, and they'll continue to iterate on what they offer. So first it was just text, and then you could talk to text. Now they can provide visualization for you. Now they can provide songs for you. Now they can provide videos for you. So they're going to keep iterating on all of those, but they'll also develop a lot more sophisticated pay-for products, right? So for this company, or for this use case, or for this industry, we'll start to see that developing, because right now they're not really making revenue, and we know that's going to end somewhere. The other thing that I want to just caution everybody is that as you are typing information into all of these open LLMs, do not put your social security number in there. Do not put in any information that you don't want out there, because it is. Once you put it in, you cannot get it back. Or you can do the paid versions, and then you can keep the data to yourself and it won't be shared. So there are options. But as they continue to iterate, these large LLM models, they will continue to offer other services and products that will become commercialized. And I think there are different LLM sets that are smaller, more industry-based, that will become a lot more popular. But there's also one thing that we didn't touch on, so it's a little bit of a tangent here, but if you decide to use a language model in your company, you can use something called a reg model, where you're determining exactly what data should be parsed, exactly what data should be read through. You might be looking at the auditor site, you might be looking for your SOPs, you might be looking through what you have done on past deals, but it's only the data that you say, so you can get a more targeted output.
Bill?
Hi, yeah. I was wondering, do you have a sense of what the real estate footprint that's needed for AI today and into the future, like server farms, engineers, office type use? I'm interested in the office space, obviously, but then is there a regionality as well? Would there be a Cincinnati AI sort of infrastructure that would have a real estate footprint?
Well, thank you, Bill, for previewing our next, but beyond that.
I actually know of 2 companies that are adding server farms. So as we went to cloud, a lot of on-premise databases went away because business went to Azure and Google and AWS. Now that's coming back just because of the sheer compute power that's required for these models, and companies are looking at what we would call a hybrid model, some on-premise and some on the cloud. We also need a lot more processing power for all of these models. So the chips are being, like I said before, with the new car, we needed mechanics, we needed gas stations, we needed all of this. Chips are being developed, server farms are being dispersed. And Ohio is actually a great place for this right now. Office space, everything is indicating return to office. So I think all of those to support the data centers might not be as many with the office space, because generally you can run a huge server farm without many people on site, but it would probably be attached to another type of business that specializes in security, cybersecurity, something like that. So I think it's prevalent, and I do want to touch base on what Ohio is doing at large. There are a lot of programs right now by Governor Husted that are for specific AI education, but also investing in businesses coming back to Ohio, specifically for chip making, specifically for data centers. So I think that's just a trend to keep in mind for what you're looking at this year.
Good morning. I just remember seeing a headline saying that ChatGPT was in like litigation with New York Times because they didn't pay for the data. I was wondering, what does buying, I'm sure you use like Auditor, so that's all free data, but like in real estate, what is the valuation of buying data from place to place? Are you buying it from CoStar, or do you pay like by line of code, or like how does that all work?
Specifically not CoStar. They're the evil empire. But there are data providers out there. Our main data provider is called Cherry, CHERRE, and they basically are, I think they're an aggregator. They've figured out a way to pull down the auditor's data every month, like clockwork. And they're not manipulating it. That's what we had to do. We had to, like I said, sew it together and iron it out. But there are feeds out there. It's not cheap from my experience. It's figures for a startup, but the goal is to help. Partner is not necessarily the right word, but work together. I guess that's where That's where we're getting it, and that's a solution. There's other solutions out there for raw data. You have Adam data, you have Black Knight, Cherry, I forget, there's some others, but those are real estate. First American has, obviously, First American has. Things evolve, we're gonna see platforms get much more sophisticated. We're the LPs in the deal. We know who the GP is, but who's the LPs? Because sometimes the LPs are the decision makers, and that's who you actually need to get in touch with. That's one of the things we're working on.
We have time for one more question. Yes.
Quick question on the industry. As this grows, as it becomes harder, right now it implies human oversight. What will this do to jobs? I think it's going to shrink some of the job market for a lot of our industries, or how does that grow, or how does that shrink?
I would liken it to the buggy whip or the slide rule industry. Those were jobs, or the carriage industry, but those specific things did go away, but you had new roles and jobs come out that are bigger and better than what they were doing. So I think it just provides an opportunity. I had somebody use the analogy of a chainsaw. Chainsaw can cut your arm off, or it can level a forest. It just depends on what you're using the tool for. I think that's the right way to think about it, and it's not good or bad, it's just how you use the tool.
One last comment from our analysts before we preview, as has already been done, the January roundtable.
I would encourage everybody just to try it and not be afraid of it. Everything will change. The industry is going to change. Hopefully it's in a way that gives you more freedoms and balance in your life, and that you can do the things that are more value add for you.
Yeah, I would say go check out our website, edl.us, nedl.us. But yeah, if there's anything that I can do or we can do, feel free to reach out.
Both. Join me in welcoming and thanking you.